I'm not pretty, she said. What the cowboy answered silenced everyone. The station called Meridian Reach hung in the dark like a jeweled wheel. It was bigger than any city Mara had ever seen on Earth. Light bands ran along its curved hull, and traffic lanes glowed with guiding lines where ships moved in steady streams. Some ships were smooth and silver like fish. Some were blocky like flying buildings. Others looked like they were grown instead of built, with ribs and petals and strange living colors. Inside, the main concourse was a river of voices. Every language Mara knew was mixed with one she could not even guess. The air smelled like metal, spice, and clean recycled water. Tall pillars held up a ceiling that looked like a night sky, shifting from blue to purple as if it had its own weather. Myra stood at the edge of a wide open hall, watching a crowd gather around the central platform. She wore the standard liaison uniform, dark jacket, soft boots, and a small badge that showed the blue and white symbol of the Terran Union. The badge felt heavy today. It always did when the room was full of people who saw humanity as a rumor rather than a fact. She was not tall, she was not loud. Her brown hair was tied back tight, and her hands were folded behind her back the way she had been trained. She could speak 7 languages and translate 3 more with a wrist tool. She knew the rules of every major trade group and the polite gestures for 20 species. None of it stopped the looks. Some aliens looked at her with curiosity, like she was an animal in a museum. Some looked past her as if she was a piece of furniture. A few smiled in a way that did not reach their eyes. Today was a public cultural exchange, which sounded peaceful and simple on paper. In practice, it was a stage, and everyone wanted to win. The central platform was circular with a low rail. Hollow screens floated above it like clear glass. A group of dignitaries were arriving, each surrounded by aides. Mara recognized the long-necked Vayari, bright and elegant in shimmering robes. She saw 2 Keth, heavy and armored, moving with slow confidence. A small cluster of lumen, beings of soft light inside clear suits, hovered near the back. And in the center, tall and pale, stood Ambassador Sorin of the Valeri Dominion. The Valeri were famous for their beauty by their own standards. Their faces were smooth, their eyes reflective like polished stone, and their clothing was made to show perfect lines. They spoke softly, but people listened anyway. Mara's supervisor, Director Halen, leaned close and whispered, "Remember your script, keep it clean." "Keep it short, they want entertainment, not lectures." Mara nodded, her throat felt dry. The script was simple, a short statement about Earth, a few images of landscapes, and a message about cooperation. It was safe. Safe was the word that ruled her job. The exchange began with a Trian musician playing a stringed instrument that sounded like wind over ice. Then the Keth displayed a combat dance, careful and controlled, more ritual than violence. The lumen presented a light pattern that made the crowd gasp, like tiny suns blooming and folding back into darkness. Then it was humanity's turn. Mara stepped onto the platform. The hollow screens shifted, showing Earth's oceans from orbit, then green forests, then deserts, then cities at night. The crowd quieted, but it was not respectful quiet. It was waiting quiet, like an audience waiting for a joke. She began in trade common, clear and calm. "The Terran Union thanks Meridian Reach for hosting this exchange. We come from a world of many climates and many cultures. We learned cooperation because we had to share one home." A few listeners leaned in. Others looked bored. She continued, "Humans build, explore, and—" Ambassador Sorin lifted a hand. Mara paused because that was the polite response to a Valeri gesture. Sorin's smooth face held a faint smile. "Liaison Mara of Earth," Sorin said, voice like silk. "Your world is interesting. Yet I struggle to understand why your species believes it should sit among elder civilizations." Mara felt Director Halen stiffen beside the platform. This was not in the script. Mara kept her face neutral. "We do not claim to be elders. We claim only that we wish to cooperate and contribute." Sorin's gaze moved over her in a slow sweep. "Contribute? With what exactly? Your ships are functional, yes. Your technology is rapidly improving, yes. But diplomacy is more than tools." A soft ripple of amusement moved through the crowd. One of Sorin's aides, a Valeri with a gold collar, spoke with a light laugh. "Beauty, for example, presentation, the ability to inspire. A species that wishes to be taken seriously must understand refinement." Mara heard a few clicks and whistles of agreement. The Vayari tilted their heads. The Keth did not react, but their eyes followed. Mara's stomach tightened. She knew this game. Some species used open insults the way humans used tests in school. They pushed to see what broke. She took a breath. Humans have many kinds of art, she said carefully. Music, painting, story, Soren interrupted again, gentle as a blade. And yet your people appear plain, soft, uneven. Your features are inconsistent. Your skin lacks patterning. Your bodies lack symmetry. The Valeri aide added, even your clothing is chosen for utility. It is as if you have no wish to be admired. The laughter this time was louder. Not everyone laughed, but enough. Mara's hands were still behind her back, but her fingers curled tight. A sudden memory flashed in her mind. A colony corridor filled with smoke, alarms screaming, children crying, and her own hands shaking as she tried to keep a door open while people rushed through. In that moment, no one cared about symmetry. They cared about air and time and survival. She swallowed. She could not say that here. This was the stage. This was politics. Director Halen made a small warning gesture. Stay calm, stay polite, do not turn it into a fight. Mara forced her voice steady. We do not measure worth by looks, we measure it by action. Soren's smile widened a fraction. Action, how noble, yet appearance is also a form of action, liaison, a signal, a declaration. When one is lacking, it sends a message. The crowd leaned in again. Mara felt heat rise in her face. She knew she should step back, end the presentation, move on. But the insult had landed in a place she tried not to touch. All her life she had been the one people underestimated. In school, in training, even in her own office. People trusted the loud ones, the shiny ones, the ones who looked like leaders. Myra had learned to be useful in quieter ways, but on bad days she wondered if the galaxy was right, if she was right. The words escaped before she could stop them, small and honest and too human. I'm not pretty, she said. For half a heartbeat the hall went still. The hollow screens continued to drift through images of Earth's mountains and seas, but no one spoke. Myra realized what she had done and wished she could pull the sentence back into her mouth. It sounded like surrender. It sounded like agreement with their cruelty. Soren lifted a brow ridge in smooth satisfaction, as if this was the proof he wanted. Self-awareness is a first step, he said. Then a new sound cut through the silence, the slow, steady tap of boots. A man walked forward from the side of the hall, not part of the official group on the platform. He moved with the relaxed confidence of someone who knew exactly where he was going. He wore a dark coat that looked old-fashioned compared to station fashion. A wide-brimmed hat sat low on his head, shadowing his eyes. His badge was not the liaison emblem. It was military, a simple star with a line through it. Myra recognized him at once, and her heart jumped in a way she did not expect. Captain Holt Rourke. Most people on Meridian reached new humanity only as diplomats and traders. Holt was something else. He commanded a frontier escort ship that patrolled the far lanes where pirates and raiders liked to hide. He had the reputation of a man who solved problems without drama, and for that reason people often called him the Cowboy, half as a joke, half as a warning. Myra had met him once before, on a day she tried to forget. Holt stepped up to the rail of the platform, looked up at Mara, and gave a short nod that felt like a steady hand on her shoulder. Then he turned his gaze to the Valeri dignitaries. The crowd shifted, surprised. A few aides moved as if to block him, but the station's security held back, uncertain. Holt had not broken any rule yet. He had simply walked forward. Director Halen's face went pale. He mouthed, "Captain, no." Holt did not look at him. Ambassador Soren studied Holt as if he were an odd tool. "You are not scheduled to speak," Soren said. Holt's voice was calm, not loud, but it carried. "No, sir, I was." He tipped his hat slightly, not a bow, not an insult, something in between. "But I heard a statement from a human under my flag, and I figured I should answer it." Mara stood frozen. Part of her feared he would make it worse. Part of her felt relief so sharp it almost hurt. Soren's aide made a dismissive gesture. "Your people have already answered." "The liaison admits her deficiency. Let the exchange continue." Holt's eyes moved to the aide, then back to Soren. "With respect," he said, "that's not what she said." The crowd grew even quieter. Even the floating lumen dimmed their glow, as if listening. Holt looked up at Mara again. His face was weathered, the kind of face that had seen hard light and long hours. His eyes were a clear gray blue. He did not smile, but there was warmth in the way he held her gaze, like he was speaking to a person, not a symbol. Then he faced the hall. "She said, 'I'm not pretty,'" Holt repeated as if tasting the words, weighing them, And the way y'all took that tells me more about you than it tells me about her. A small murmur ran through the crowd. Some bristled at his casual tone. Others leaned in, intrigued. Holt continued, "Where I come from, pretty is what you hang on a wall. It's what you put under soft lights so folks can clap and feel good. But you don't take pretty out into a dust storm. You don't take pretty into a burning hull. You don't take pretty into the dark when you don't know if you're coming back." Mara felt her breath catch. The flashback came again, alarms, smoke, the metal taste of fear. Soren's smooth expression tightened. "Are you suggesting appearance is meaningless?" Holt shook his head slowly. "No, sir, I'm saying it's not the measure you think it is, not the only one, not the one that matters most when things go wrong." He pointed, not accusing, just direct. "You think refinement means being admired. We think refinement means building something that holds together when it's stressed. A bridge, a ship, a promise." The word promise hung in the air like a bell. Mara saw heads turning. Even some Valeri looked uneasy now. The mood had shifted. The crowd was no longer laughing. They were listening. Director Halen took a step forward, but stopped. He looked like a man watching a train leave the tracks and realizing he could not run fast enough to stop it. Holt's voice stayed even. "Liaison Mara is one of the best people I've met in this galaxy. She's smart, she's stubborn in the right way, and she stands between humans and misunderstanding every day, which is a rough kind of work. So if anyone here thinks they're going to use her as a joke, they're going to find out that humans don't laugh along when our own are being cut down." Mara's eyes stung. She kept her face still because she knew how cameras worked. But inside, something that had been clenched for a long time loosened. Soren raised his chin. "You speak as if your species has some special virtue, yet you are young, you have little history among the stars." Holt nodded once. "That's true, we're young out here. But we're old in the ways that count. We've been fighting cold and hunger and distance since before we could write our names. We've been learning how to live beside people who don't agree with us since we first made cities. We're not perfect, but we learn fast." He paused, letting that settle. "And here's the thing," Holt said softly. "If you want to judge us by how shiny we look, you can, that's your right. But don't be surprised when the day comes that you need someone to hold a door against the fire, and the only ones who step forward are the plain ones you laughed at." No one laughed now. The silence felt thick, heavy, complete. Myra glanced at the hollow screens. An image of Earth's ocean rolled across them, waves glittering under sunlight. For a strange moment, she felt like the station was far away, and she was standing on a beach again, the wind on her face, the world wide and honest. Soren's smile had vanished. He looked around, seeing the crowd's reaction, feeling control slipping. "Captain Holt Rourke," he said, voice still smooth but colder, "your speech is dramatic." Holt tipped his head. "Maybe, but it's true." He turned slightly, not away from Soren, but enough to address the crowd again. "Now, I'm not here to start a fight. I'm here to finish a misunderstanding." He looked up at Mara. His voice softened, just enough that it felt personal even though the whole hall heard it. "You ain't a decoration," he told her. "You're a lighthouse, and anybody who can't see that is the one standing in the dark." Mara's chest tightened, and for a second she could not speak. The words were simple, basic, not fancy, but they landed like a shield snapping into place. The hall remained silent, but it was a different kind of silence now. It was not mockery waiting to strike. It was attention, respect, and something close to awe. Director Halen cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Thank you, Captain," he said quickly, voice tight. "The Terran Union appreciates your support. Now Liaison Mara will continue with the scheduled presentation." Mara blinked, grounding herself. She forced her hands to relax behind her back. She looked out at the crowd again. The Valeri still stood proud, but their confidence had cracked. The Vayari watched with interest. The Keth stared at Holt with something like approval. Mara began again, but this time her voice did not shake. "Earth," she said, "is not a polished world. It is a living one. It is rough in places and beautiful in others. So are we." As the images shifted to show humans working, builders, doctors, farmers, engineers, Mara felt Holt step back from the rail. He did not leave. He stood at the side, quiet, hat low, like a guard on a long road. Myra's voice echoed across the hall, steady now, carrying images of Earth cities, forests, deserts, and oceans. The crowd's mood had shifted. What had begun as ridicule was now an uneasy curiosity. She noticed whispers, soft clicks, and small gestures of attention from the Vayari and even the Valeri. They had expected a timid human, one who would shrink under their words. Instead, they were seeing someone who represented the human spirit, resilient, determined, and quietly proud. Captain Holt stood at the side, leaning against a pillar, hat low, arms crossed. His presence was calm but unmistakable. Mara could feel it like a grounding force beneath her, a silent reassurance. She drew a deep breath and let it steady her. "Humans," she said, "have learned that life is not always fair. We make mistakes, we fail, but each time we do, we stand again. We do not give up because the universe is hard. We give up when we stop trying to be better." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some aliens were impressed by her words. Others were skeptical. That was normal. The universe had seen humans as primitive and weak for centuries. Changing that perception would not happen in one speech. Holt stepped slightly closer, his boots making no more sound than a soft tap. He did not interrupt, but his eyes followed Mara's, nodding ever so slightly. His presence alone was enough to remind the crowd that humans had leaders, fighters, and thinkers who would not bow easily. "Your species is young," one of the Valeri ambassadors said, his tone measured but still laced with doubt. "You have little history among the stars. How can you claim to possess strength when you have not endured as we have?" Mara hesitated for just a moment before answering. "We may be young among the stars," she said, "but we have endured storms, fire, famine, and war on our home planet. We have learned to survive with creativity, courage, and unity. We may not look perfect, but we are strong where it matters." A few lumen in the back seemed to shimmer brighter at her words, their light pulsing like quiet applause. The Keth remained still, watching carefully as if weighing her words against their own experience. Even the Valeri tilted their heads, curiosity replacing their initial amusement. The Valeri ambassador's face remained unchanged, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Interesting. You claim strength through unity and perseverance, yet words are easy to speak. Show us, prove your species is more than speech." A ripple of tension ran through the hall. Mara's stomach tightened. This was not part of the presentation. They were challenging her, testing humanity in front of dozens of species. She could feel every eye on her. Holt stepped forward this time not to speak but to gesture toward the hollow screens. "Then let us show you," he said, voice calm but commanding. "Words are not always enough. Actions speak louder." The hollow screens shifted instantly, displaying a series of clips. Scenes of humans on distant colonies appeared. A research team fixing a collapsed bridge on Mars under high winds, a medical crew treating alien refugees on a distant planet, and a group of miners rescuing trapped workers after a tunnel collapse. Each clip was short, but the stories were clear. Humans worked together, thought quickly, and faced danger without hesitation. The crowd murmured. Some of the older species leaned forward, watching carefully. Some of the younger ones whispered among themselves. Myra felt her confidence grow. This was humanity in action, the proof of what she had been saying all along. One clip showed Myra herself, months ago, standing in a burning corridor on a frontier colony, holding a door open as people rushed past her to safety. She felt a shiver run through her memory, the smoke, the heat, the panic. But now in front of the galaxy, she felt pride instead of fear. She had not been alone. Holt had been there, coordinating and protecting. Together, they had kept people alive. When the last clip faded, Holt stepped back slightly, allowing Mara to continue. She took a deep breath and let her words carry the weight of what they had all seen. "Humans do not need to look perfect to matter," she said. "We are defined by what we do when no one is watching, by how we protect each other, by how we fight for what is right even when it is hard. That is strength." The hall fell silent. Even the Valeri ambassador seemed momentarily disarmed. Myra felt her heart pound, but she kept her stance firm, grounded by Holt's calm presence at her side. A soft click echoed through the room, a signal that the next phase was about to begin. Myra's mind sharpened immediately. The cultural exchange was one thing, but now the Valeri had announced a trial, a challenge designed to test humans in front of the galaxy. The ambassador's words rang clear in the hollow air. "If your species claims strength and unity, let them prove it." Liaison Mara will represent humanity in the trial of endurance and strategy. The outcome will determine the respect given to your kind today. The crowd reacted instantly. Shock, surprise, and whispers rippled through the room. Some leaned forward, eager for the spectacle. Others seemed to doubt humans could succeed. Mara's stomach twisted, but she felt a strange surge of determination. Holt's hand rested briefly on her shoulder. "You can do this," he said quietly. I'll be with you every step. Trust your instincts. Trust what we've learned together. Mara nodded. The fear was still there, but it was tempered by purpose. She remembered the long nights on frontier stations, the drills, the training, the moments when she had faced impossible odds and survived. This trial would be different, public, visible, judged by species that expected humans to fail. But she was ready. The trial would not be about beauty or diplomacy. It would be about endurance, intelligence, and courage. It would push her and humanity to the limit. And yet, in a strange way, she felt more prepared than ever. The first stage of the trial began with a simulation, a large hollow environment projected above the platform, showing a rugged landscape filled with hazards. The task was simple in theory: navigate the terrain, reach a series of points, and complete objectives under time constraints. In practice, the simulation was brutal. Storms swept across the landscape, sudden cliffs rose without warning, and the tasks required both speed and careful planning. Mara's first instinct was to analyze. She mapped the terrain in her mind, identified safe paths, and calculated the best route to complete the objectives efficiently. She communicated her plan to Holt, who nodded, adjusting minor tactics based on his experience with real-world hazards. As the trial began, other species moved with raw strength or speed. A group of Keth relied on brute force to overcome obstacles, while the Veyari used levitation technology and precise gestures. Mara, however, combined careful strategy with adaptability. She avoided unnecessary risks, helped competitors when they faltered, and found shortcuts others overlooked. The crowd watched, murmuring in disbelief. Here was a human navigating danger with intellect and calm, making every movement count. Midway through the simulation, a sudden hazard appeared. A collapsing ridge threatened to cut off her path. She froze for just a second, calculating, then grabbed a rope provided in the simulation kit, swinging across a gap with precision. The Keth and Veyari watched, impressed despite themselves. Holt called out quietly, "Good, keep moving, don't let them intimidate you." Mara's pulse raced, but her focus remained sharp. Every step she took was measured, every decision deliberate. She felt the weight of every human who had survived before her, guiding her through instinct and training. As she reached the final objective of the first stage, a low cheer ran through the crowd. The humans in the audience, scientists, traders, and diplomats, clapped loudly, proud of the display. The aliens, even the skeptical Veyari, nodded in acknowledgement. Respect was beginning to replace doubt. The second stage of the trial was different. It required teamwork, quick problem-solving, and risk management. The simulation projected a complex scenario: a stranded colony on a distant planet, with limited resources, failing infrastructure, and a time-sensitive evacuation. Competitors were judged not only on completing the tasks, but on how effectively they cooperated. Mara's mind worked fast. She assessed the situation, assigning roles, prioritizing tasks, and coordinating with other participants, even competitors from other species. She quickly identified strengths in her team, leveraging them efficiently. Holt watched her closely, offering advice only when necessary. His calm presence allowed Mara to focus on the challenges rather than fear the crowd. The aliens could see it too. Humans were organized, resilient, and decisive. As the scenario progressed, crises emerged. A bridge collapsed, a storm intensified, and a group of simulated colonists panicked. Mara made split-second decisions, directing humans and aliens alike, ensuring every obstacle was handled without unnecessary loss. By the end of the stage, the evaluation was clear. Mara had not only completed the objectives, but had done so with efficiency, courage, and intelligence. The crowd erupted, not with mockery, but with genuine respect. Even the Veyari ambassador allowed a small, grudging nod. Holt stepped forward once more. "She's done more than survive," he said quietly to the audience. "She's shown what humans are capable of when we work together. Strength isn't in appearance or technology alone. Strength is in heart, mind, and unity, and that is something humans will never lack." The hall fell into a stunned silence, the words sinking into every species present. Mara stood, breath steady, feeling the weight of the moment and the pride in having represented humanity. The trial was far from over, but the first victory had already been won. The galaxy had begun to see humanity differently, not as a young, plain species, but as a force of intelligence, courage, and unwavering unity. And for Mara, standing next to Holt, she realized something vital. She was not alone. Humanity had her back, and she had proven that even when the universe doubted, humans could rise and be counted among the stars. The next stages would be harder. The challenges would be greater. But Mara knew that whatever came next, she had the skill, the courage, and the heart to face it. And more importantly, she had a human cowboy who believed in her, standing silently at her side, a living reminder that humanity's strength was never in appearances, but in its people. The trial moved into its third stage, and the energy in the hall shifted from curiosity to anticipation. This stage would test not just skill and intelligence, but endurance, adaptability, and human resilience under pressure. It was designed to push participants to the edge. The hollow screens above the platform shifted into a new simulation. A jagged asteroid belt scattered with broken stations, derelict ships, and unpredictable gravitational fields. The task was clear: navigate the treacherous field, retrieve key supplies, and safely return to a docking point, all while avoiding simulated hazards that could destroy even the most advanced craft. Mara felt the tension in her shoulders, but she did not let it show. She had faced challenges before, both in simulations and in real life, that demanded calm decision-making under extreme stress. Beside her, Holt's presence was steady. He did not speak yet, only observed, giving Mara space to lead. That was the kind of leadership Mara had come to rely on, quiet, unshakable, always ready to act if needed. The other species prepared as well. The Keth moved with brutal efficiency, their ships thick, strong, and nearly indestructible. The Vayari relied on precision and elegance, their craft sleek and fast. The Lumen appeared to float, light pulsing along their hulls, moving almost like living beings. All of them had one advantage. The galaxy had long considered them experienced, capable, and superior to humans. Mara climbed into her small Terran shuttle. It was modest compared to the others, functional rather than flashy, but it had been designed for survival, not beauty. Holt joined her, stepping into the co-pilot's seat without ceremony. He gave her a nod, eyes clear, and the silent message was unmistakable: trust yourself. As the countdown began, the tension in the hall was nearly tangible. Mara's hands gripped the controls, fingers moving confidently over buttons and switches she had memorized countless times. The asteroid field unfolded above them on the hollow screen, massive rocks spinning slowly but unpredictably. Broken satellite pieces floated between them, and the simulation added sudden meteor bursts to keep participants on edge. Holt's voice broke the silence, calm and precise. Keep your focus on the path ahead. Don't react to every spinning rock. Choose your moves carefully. Watch for patterns. Mara nodded, keeping her eyes on the navigation display. She had learned to anticipate motion, to understand how gravity and inertia worked in three-dimensional space. The Keth ships moved with brute force, pushing obstacles aside and smashing through debris. The Vayari slid gracefully, but one small miscalculation sent a ship spinning dangerously near a massive asteroid. The Lumen appeared to glide effortlessly, their lights shimmering as if guiding them. Mara's strategy was different. She mapped the positions of obstacles in her mind, plotting a course that used the natural movement of the asteroids to her advantage. She timed each maneuver precisely, moving only when she had complete confidence in the path ahead. Holt's hand rested lightly on the control panel, ready to correct if necessary, but he did not interfere. "Good," Holt said softly. "You're reading it well, keep your timing tight." A sudden alert flashed. A fragment from a broken station spun dangerously close. Mara adjusted her thrusters in time, sliding past the obstacle with only a hair's breadth of space between her shuttle and the spinning metal. The crowd in the hall leaned forward, some gasping audibly. Even the Valeri seemed surprised. The challenge was not only to navigate but to retrieve supplies. Floating cargo pods were scattered across the asteroid field, some locked in precarious positions. Mara calculated which pods were accessible and in what order. Efficiency was critical. Wasting time or energy could cost points or even lead to failure. "First pod, 6 o'clock, Holt said, pointing to the display. "Gravity on that one is stronger, slow approach." Mara adjusted her trajectory, carefully grappling the pod with the shuttle's magnetic clamps. The metal shifted slightly, and she had to make a split-second adjustment to prevent it from swinging into a nearby asteroid. The ship creaked under the strain, but she kept control. The Keth had already collected 2 pods using brute force. The Vayari had one, moving elegantly but cautiously. Mara had secured her first, and she felt a thrill of quiet pride. The other species had underestimated her ability to think, adapt, and act under pressure. Suddenly, a simulated meteor storm erupted in the field. Small rocks rained down unpredictably, and many ships had to dodge or risk destruction. The Keth collided with one fragment, spinning out of control. The Vayari narrowly avoided disaster but lost valuable time. The lumens struggled to adjust to the sudden change, their light flickering nervously. Mara took a deep breath, analyzing the storm. Panic would ruin her, but careful timing would save her. She waited for the first gaps in the meteor rain, then accelerated with precision, weaving through obstacles with calculated movements. Holt's voice guided her subtly, but the decisions were hers. They reached the midpoint of the field, where the final supply pods were clustered near a massive asteroid tumbling unpredictably. The challenge required Mara to make choices: attempt the risky approach and gain more points, or play it safe and guarantee completion. She chose the calculated risk. The shuttle shook as she maneuvered close, clamping onto a pod just as the asteroid's spin threatened to crush it. Holt's hand steadied the controls momentarily, but it was Mara's skill that succeeded. The pod secured, she immediately calculated a path back to the exit point, dodging a fragment that spun dangerously close. The crowd in the hall erupted in applause, some unable to hide their astonishment. A few Keth muttered under their breath, impressed despite themselves. The Vayari's faces remained calm, but Mara could see the surprise in their reflective eyes. Even the lumen shimmered brighter, as if acknowledging a competitor's ingenuity. "Good work," Holt said quietly, leaning back. "You're reading the field like it's familiar terrain." That's what counts. The final stretch required speed and precision. The docking point was guarded by simulated hazards, spinning blades, sudden gravitational shifts, and debris traps. Mara focused, calculating every move. She pushed the shuttle to its limits, balancing risk and control. The crowd gasped as she navigated the final gauntlet, landing smoothly at the docking point with seconds to spare. The evaluation system confirmed her success. She had completed the stage faster and with fewer mistakes than most other species. Points were tallied, and the results flashed across the hollow screen. Mara had not only survived, she had excelled. Holt's hand rested lightly on her shoulder as they stepped out of the shuttle. "See," he said, voice low, "they expected humans to fail, and what did we do? We showed them who we are." Mara's chest heaved with a mixture of adrenaline and relief. She allowed herself a small smile. She had done it. She had represented humanity in a way that words alone could not. The crowd's reaction was a mixture of surprise, admiration, and grudging respect. Even the Vayari ambassador gave a small nod. Mara realized that perceptions were changing, slowly, yes, but undeniably. Humans were not just survivors or learners. They were capable, intelligent, and courageous, and the galaxy had begun to take notice. The next part of the trial would test collaboration and diplomacy. Mara knew it would be harder, more complex, and possibly more dangerous. She would have to work not only with her own species but with competitors from other civilizations, each with their own agendas, strengths, and weaknesses. The challenge was no longer just about survival or skill. It was about proving humanity's ability to unite, to lead, and to inspire trust. Holt stepped beside her, his gaze sweeping over the hall. "Next stage will be trickier," he said. "Other species will test you, push you, maybe even try to cheat. But you know how humans handle that. We adapt, we endure, and we look out for each other. Don't forget that." Mara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her shoulders. It was more than a trial now. It was a statement about humanity itself. Every decision, every action, every choice she made reflected not just on her, but on all humans. The next simulation began immediately, projecting a new scenario onto the hollow screen. A remote planet facing environmental collapse. Simulated colonies were in danger of flooding, landslides, and system failures. Teams from multiple species were tasked with coordinating rescue and stabilization efforts. It was not a competition of speed, but of cooperation, negotiation, and problem-solving. Mara's mind went to work instantly. She evaluated each species, strengths and weaknesses, assigning tasks to those most capable. She spoke clearly, concisely, and confidently, directing efforts while remaining flexible to changes. Holt watched, offering quiet advice and occasional support, but Mara led. As the simulation progressed, challenges arose. A landslide blocked a critical path, power systems failed, and communication lines became unstable. Mara quickly devised solutions, coordinating human and alien participants alike. She calmed panicked participants, offered alternatives, and adapted strategies in real time. The other species began to notice. The Keth, usually independent and aggressive, followed her guidance when their usual methods failed. The Vayari respected her intelligence and efficiency, adjusting their approach to align with hers. The Lumen's light pulses seemed to synchronize with her commands, almost as if acknowledging her leadership. By the end of the stage, the evaluation was clear. Humanity had not only survived the simulation but had led it to success. The crowd erupted in applause, some rising to their feet, others stunned into silence. Mara felt the pride of her species in that moment. They had begun to earn the galaxy's respect, not through power or beauty, but through intelligence, courage, and unity. Holt placed a hand on her shoulder again. "You've done more than survive today," he said quietly. "You've shown the galaxy that humans are capable of leadership, strategy, and courage. That's what we wanted them to see." Mara allowed herself a smile, feeling the truth of his words. Humanity's journey in the stars was just beginning, but today they had made a mark. They had proven that appearance and age in the galaxy did not determine strength. Action, intelligence, and unity did. The fourth stage of the trial began with a sudden shift in atmosphere. The crowd's curiosity had become anticipation, and anticipation had become tension. The hollow screens flickered and expanded into a vast, hostile environment. A planet on the edge of its star system, half scorched by solar flares, half covered in jagged ice. The simulation was designed to be unforgiving. Resources were scarce, hazards unpredictable, and success required not just intelligence, but courage, decisiveness, and loyalty. Mara and Holt stood side by side, watching the projection unfold. The human shuttle had already been transported into the simulation. The challenge was clear: rescue stranded colonists, stabilize failing infrastructure, and navigate a complex network of dangers, all while coordinating with teams from other species. "Other species will push hard here," Holt said quietly. "Some will cooperate. Some will try to exploit weaknesses. Stay calm, trust your judgment, and trust each other." Mara nodded, feeling a familiar surge of determination. She knew that this stage would be different. It was not about speed or skill alone. It was about resilience under pressure, judgment under uncertainty, and the courage to act when rules changed unexpectedly. The simulation began. Mara's first task was to locate the stranded colonists. The holomap indicated several groups, some trapped under debris, others scattered across unstable terrain. She quickly divided the area into sectors, assigning humans and aliens to each. "Vayari Team Alpha," she said, pointing at the display. "Focus on the northern ridge. Keth Beta, move to the East Canyon and stabilize the bridge. Lumen, assist with scanning for survivors in low-visibility areas." The other species hesitated for a moment, unused to being directed by a human. But Mara's calm confidence and precise instructions earned their cooperation. Holt watched silently, ready to intervene if needed, but Mara led the operation flawlessly. As the rescue efforts began, a sudden hazard emerged. A fissure opened in the ice, sending a cascade of debris toward a trapped group of colonists. Mara calculated the timing, instructing her team to secure harness lines while simultaneously diverting falling debris using portable shields. The operation required split-second coordination. "Move fast, timing matters," she called, her voice steady. Holt adjusted a control panel to stabilize the shields, giving the colonists a clear path. Mara guided them through the hazard, ensuring everyone reached safety. The crowd watching on the station leaned forward, whispers spreading. Humans had not only survived previous stages, they were leading, adapting, and excelling under extreme conditions. Then came the twist. The simulation introduced a surprise. A group of rival participants attempted to sabotage the human effort. One Keth squad tried to redirect resources, claiming they had misread Mara's instructions. The Vayari team hesitated, unsure whether to trust her plan. The stakes had risen from coordination to conflict. Mara's mind raced. She could have reacted with anger or panic, but that would have jeopardized everyone. Instead, she focused on strategy. Keep calm, she said. We are here to save lives, not argue. If they interfere, we adjust. Focus on the task. I'll handle the rest. Holt's hand rested briefly on her shoulder, a silent reminder that she was not alone. He did not interfere directly, but remained ready to step in. Mara quickly rerouted resources, assigning humans to secure critical points while continuing rescue operations. She spoke directly to the interfering teams, appealing to reason and shared goals. Slowly, the Vayari adjusted their approach, and the Keth realized sabotage would harm their own score. The colonists were moved to safe zones one by one. Each successful rescue bolstered Mara's confidence. The simulation continued to throw new challenges. Solar flares erupted, ice sheets cracked, and debris fell unpredictably. The human team moved with efficiency, using intellect, adaptability, and courage to meet every hazard. But the final test of the stage was the hardest. The main station, where the largest group of colonists was trapped, began to collapse. The path to reach it was blocked by debris and unstable terrain. The rival teams had retreated temporarily, but the pressure intensified. Time was critical. Mara evaluated the situation. The safest route was blocked, but an alternate path existed, a narrow ledge over a deep chasm. It was risky, but it offered the only chance to reach the station before collapse. She made the decision instantly. Prepare for a high-risk approach, she said calmly. Follow my lead and stay focused. We move as one. The shuttle maneuvered toward the ledge. Holt adjusted thrusters as Mara guided it, balancing speed and stability. The crowd in the hall gasped as the shuttle slid along the narrow path, inches from disaster. The human team worked flawlessly under her direction, securing colonists, stabilizing the station's structure, and managing hazards in real time. Holt assisted subtly, but it was Mara's leadership that guided every action. As the last colonist was evacuated, a simulated solar flare erupted, threatening to destroy the shuttle and the station. Mara calculated the trajectory, guiding the craft through a narrow gap in the flare's path. The shuttle shuddered but held steady. Holt's hand remained on the control panel, ready to correct any misstep, but Mara's planning and instinct ensured success. The simulation ended with all colonists safe and critical infrastructure stabilized. The hollow screens projected the results. Humans had completed the stage with efficiency, courage, and precision. Points were tallied, and for the first time, humanity led the scoreboard. The crowd erupted, applause and whispers filling the hall. Even the Valeri ambassador's expression softened, acknowledging the humans' achievement. The Keth and Vayari teams, usually proud and unyielding, showed subtle signs of respect. The lumen pulsed brightly, their acknowledgement unmistakable. Holt turned to Mara, his eyes clear. See, they wanted to break you to see humans fail, but you didn't just survive, you led, adapted, and succeeded. Mara allowed herself a small, exhausted smile. She had faced the galaxy's challenge and proven that humanity was more than appearances or age among the stars. They were capable of leadership, courage, and unity, but the trial was not over. The final stage would push participants to their absolute limits, a combination of physical endurance, strategic thinking, and moral decision-making under stress. Mara knew it would test her and humanity in ways nothing before had. Holt placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Whatever comes next, remember this, humans do not back down when things get hard. We face it, we endure, and we protect each other. Mara nodded, feeling the truth in his words. The respect humanity had begun to earn in the galaxy was fragile, but it was growing. They had proven they were not just another species to dismiss. The simulation ended, and the crowd's reaction settled into a tense, attentive silence. Mara stepped off the platform, heart racing but steady. She had done more than survive. She had shown the strength, intelligence, and courage that defined humans. Holt followed, quiet but present. They are starting to understand, he said softly. Your words and actions are showing them who we really are. Mara looked at him, feeling a mix of exhaustion and pride. It's not just me, she said. It's all of us, humans, that's what makes us strong. Holt nodded, tipping his hat slightly. Exactly, and you just reminded the galaxy that we don't measure strength by appearances. We measure it by heart, courage, and loyalty. The hall was buzzing with quiet conversations. For the first time, the galaxy seemed to be reconsidering its assumptions about humanity. Mara realized that the journey to earn respect was just beginning, but this stage had been a turning point. As she prepared for the final stage, she felt a renewed sense of determination. She had faced impossible odds before, and she would do it again. Humanity's strength was not in speed, beauty, or history. It was in resilience, intelligence, and the willingness to stand together when everything else fell apart. Holt's gaze met hers, calm and unwavering. "Let's finish this," he said. "Show them that humans never quit." Mara squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of responsibility and the pride of her species. She was ready. The final stage would test everything she had learned, every skill, every decision, every ounce of courage. But she knew one thing: she would not face it alone. The final stage of the trial opened with a quiet tension that felt heavier than anything Mara had faced before. The hollow screens projected a world at the edge of collapse. A city built on unstable cliffs, storms whipping across the terrain, and simulated fires spreading unpredictably. This stage was not just a test of skill, speed, or endurance. It was a test of judgment, leadership, and the human heart. Mara stood on the platform with Holt beside her. He had been a steady presence throughout the trial, offering guidance only when necessary. Now he simply watched, letting Mara take the lead. The audience, crowded with species from every corner of the galaxy, fell silent. Every eye was fixed on the human liaison. "This is it," Holt said softly, his voice a quiet anchor. "Every choice you make matters. Remember what you've learned. Trust yourself and the people around you. Humans don't quit." Mara swallowed and nodded. She knew he was right. This stage would challenge every skill she had learned, every instinct she had honed. And it would test her ability to inspire trust and cooperation among aliens who were accustomed to seeing humans as weak and insignificant. The trial began. The simulation projected multiple crises simultaneously: collapsed bridges, fires, flooding, and trapped civilians. Teams from all participating species scrambled to respond. The Keth used brute force to clear debris, the Vayari attempted precise interventions, and the Lumen floated through the environment, scanning and coordinating. Mara took a deep breath, assessing the situation. She quickly divided the environment into sectors, assigning responsibilities based on each team's strengths. Humans Alpha, she called, focus on stabilizing the North Bridge. Keth Beta, secure the Eastern Tower. Vayari Gamma, manage the fire containment. Lumen Delta, locate civilians in the Southern District. Her calm, confident voice carried authority. For the first time, many of the alien participants hesitated, then followed her instructions. Mara's clarity and decisiveness were impossible to ignore. The first crisis erupted within minutes. A building on the cliff edge began to collapse, threatening dozens of civilians. Mara immediately directed her team. Human Alpha, deploy safety lines. Keth Beta, support the evacuation route. Vayari Gamma, assist with lifting civilians. Lumen Delta, scan for safe exits. Holt leaned slightly over her shoulder, his eyes scanning the simulation. "Good. Remember, timing is everything. Trust your instincts." Mara directed each move, calculating risks and coordinating efforts. Civilians were moved to safety with minimal loss. A sudden rockslide threatened the path, but she adjusted strategies instantly, redirecting teams and using the environment to their advantage. As the first crisis was managed, Mara noticed a troubling development. One of the rival teams, a group of Vayari, began redirecting resources in a way that could endanger civilians. It was subtle but intentional. They were trying to manipulate the trial to embarrass humans publicly. Mara's mind raced. She could confront them directly, but that could escalate conflict and endanger the rescue. Instead, she made a strategic decision. Human Beta, take control of the west sector, divert the civilians to a safer route. Keth, cover the path. Vayari, assist with stabilization. Do not engage with interference. Focus on saving lives. Holt watched silently, knowing Mara's plan required precise execution. "Good choice," he murmured. "Keep the goal in mind, protection first. Everything else comes second." The rival Vayari team attempted one more interference, but Mara anticipated it. She adjusted the shuttle's path, deployed human team members to strategic positions, and rerouted civilians around the danger. The Vayari's attempts failed, and the humans gained a small but meaningful advantage in the trial. The simulation intensified. Fires spread faster, storms worsened, and structural collapses multiplied. Mara's team worked tirelessly, guided by her clear decisions and calm presence. She moved from sector to sector, coordinating, solving unexpected problems, and keeping morale high. Every action reflected not only skill but leadership, showing the galaxy the human ability to adapt under extreme pressure. Then came the final crisis. The cliff-edge city began to fracture at multiple points simultaneously. Civilians were trapped, fires raged uncontrollably, and a collapsing bridge threatened to cut off the main evacuation route. Panic rippled through the simulation, and Mara knew the next moments would define the trial. She assessed the situation quickly. There were only two viable options: attempt a risky maneuver to reach the civilians quickly, or retreat and lose valuable points but ensure safety. Mara's heart pounded, but her mind was clear. "We take the risk," she said firmly. "Everyone stay focused, move as one." "Trust the plan." Holt's eyes met hers. "I'm with you," he said quietly. "Every step, let's do this together." Mara directed her team through the chaos. Humans secured lines across unstable terrain, guiding civilians to safety. The Keth used strength to hold collapsing structures, while the Vayari stabilized critical points. The Lumen illuminated paths through smoke and debris. Holt adjusted systems, providing precise support, but every decision flowed from Mara. The tension was palpable. A falling beam threatened to crush part of the evacuation route. Mara calculated timing with split-second precision, instructing human team members to divert the beam while Keth held supporting structures. The civilians moved safely past the danger, and the beam collapsed harmlessly into a ravine. The crowd in the hall gasped at the near miss, murmuring in amazement. Even the Valeri, who had tried to sabotage the effort, now watched with quiet astonishment. The humans had not only survived, they had led, adapted, and succeeded under extreme conditions. The storm intensified further. Fires spread and debris rained from above. Mara remained calm, her mind racing with solutions. Human Alpha cover the eastern flank. Vayari Gamma contain the fire. Keth Beta secure the bridge. Lumen Delta continue scanning for civilians. Every command was executed perfectly. The humans moved with coordination and intelligence, responding to the unexpected hazards with precision. Holt monitored systems and assisted subtly, but Mara's leadership remained the anchor. As the final civilians reached safety, Mara directed the team to stabilize the remaining structures. The simulation concluded with all objectives completed successfully. The hollow screens displayed the results. Humans had not only finished the stage, they had achieved near-perfect execution under impossible circumstances. The crowd erupted in applause, the noise echoing through the station. Species from across the galaxy, some skeptical, some curious, now acknowledged the humans' achievement. Even the Valeri ambassador, usually reserved and critical, gave a small nod of respect. Mara felt a mixture of exhaustion and pride. She had led humanity to victory. Holt stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've done it," he said quietly. "The galaxy has seen what humans are capable of, not because we're perfect, not because we're beautiful, but because we endure, adapt, and protect each other. That's strength." Mara looked out at the audience. She saw faces of disbelief, admiration, and respect. Humans were no longer seen as weak or insignificant. They were leaders, capable of courage, strategy, and unity. The trial had been the proof the galaxy needed. As the applause continued, Mara felt a warmth she had never experienced before. This was more than victory, it was recognition. Humanity had earned a place in the eyes of the galaxy, not for appearances or age among the stars, but for heart, courage, and determination. The Valeri ambassador stepped forward, his expression serious but sincere. "Liaison Mara, Captain Holt," he said. "Today you have shown that humanity possesses qualities not measured by beauty or history, but by action, intelligence, and loyalty. Your species has proven itself among the stars." A murmur ran through the crowd. Whispers of admiration spread among the alien spectators. Humans in the audience cheered, some standing, some clapping, tears from their eyes. Mara felt a deep sense of pride, not for herself but for her species. Holt nodded to her. "See," he said softly. "They've begun to understand. Humanity is more than they thought, and this is just the beginning." Mara smiled, feeling a profound truth settle in her chest. "It's only the beginning," she said. "But today we've made them notice. Today we've made them respect us." The trial concluded, but its impact resonated far beyond the hall. News of the human performance spread quickly through the galaxy, and discussions of humanity's capabilities shifted from doubt to admiration. Mara had not only survived every stage of the trial, but had led with courage, intelligence, and heart. As the crowd dispersed, Myra and Holt stepped back from the platform. The adrenaline began to fade, leaving exhaustion mixed with triumph. Holt's eyes were steady, but a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "You've done more than prove humans can survive," he said. "You've shown that we can lead, inspire, and endure. That's something no one can ignore." Mara nodded. "And we did it together," she said, glancing at the humans and aliens who had assisted in the trial. "That's what makes us strong. Not one person, not one team, everyone working together." Holt tipped his hat, his eyes warm. "Exactly, and that, Mara, is what the galaxy will remember." The station buzzed with conversation as the species departed, some with a newfound respect for humans, some quietly reconsidering previous assumptions, and others inspired to work alongside this young, determined species. Mara watched the crowd, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. Humans had proven themselves not through beauty or history, but through heart, courage, and unity. As the last observers left the platform, Mara looked at Holt. "Thank you," she said softly. He shrugged, tipping his hat again. "You did it. I just reminded them what they were missing." Mara laughed quietly, exhaustion and relief mingling. She had faced the galaxy's challenge, and humanity had risen. The journey was far from over, but for the first time she felt the weight of pride and purpose. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were respected. They were counted among the stars. And as Mara stepped off the platform, surrounded by the quiet hum of the station and the fading hollow lights of the trial, she knew one thing. Humanity's story in the galaxy was only beginning, and whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, unbroken, unbowed. And unstoppable,